look in the mirror, we see the ID card we present to everyone we meet, and the many thousands more we fleetingly pass by. Our ID is shaped by the language we speak, the friends, habitual behaviours, the clothes we wear. It all paints a picture and represents the image we're most comfortable presenting to the world. It is the you that you show the world whether you like it or not. And in turn, we're constantly checking the personal business cards of everyone we meet, and where automatic, unconscious compatibility matches are made. People watching is a great game of first impressions that many of us enjoy, because as a species we are so rich and diverse. It is a subject matter that will never stop giving. Ironically, despite the fact we generally put a lot of care and attention into our appearance, we are as much of a people-watching subject to them as they are to us. We, in that respect, are just another person's version of weird. The way we dress for work is generally different to the way we appear when relaxed on a weekend, for instance. One is our interpretation of what is considered to be acceptable professionally, or what is expected by your employer as acceptable. The other is a mixture of comfort and style we truly feel relaxed in. We sometimes incorporate our work identity into our lives to such a degree, it actually starts to become who we are. What we do for a living can very often define who we are as individuals. The knock-on effect is then, when the company faces closure or retirement beckons, we're left wondering who we are, or who we should be next. The danger is allowing an external influence to shape our lives to such a degree, we end up forgetting how to balance one reality from the other. If all of your emotional needs are being recognised and addressed with authenticity, then changes to your external affairs can be easily processed, and they will tend to have much less of an impact. Why? Because you haven't changed, even when your circumstances have. If you look after your state of being first, everything else is secondary. There are the times when the very first question you'll be asked at a social gathering is, "So what is it that you do?" We know those folks that have allowed themselves to be assimilated into their jobs, salary and rank to such a degree it actually starts to creep into every aspect of their lives. They'll assume your identity is also what you do for a living. The question instantly becomes far more appealing, or at least it should, when you're asked, "So what is it you like to do?" But what happens if we strip away this work-related title or role? The flash company car, the hierarchical structures, the pressure, the salary or lack of it? Where would it leave the average Joe? What would happen if our necessity to work was replaced with a desire to provide a service? Who would you be when given the freedom to create just for the sake of creating? With no demands on our time or energy, no stress, what would you be doing then? When the rules and restrictions of an artificially constructed society are removed, we would have the time and space to develop a much better understanding of what really does underpin our true beliefs about who and what we are. It starts by looking at the belief filters we use to interpret the world. Beliefs are simply the thoughts we keep thinking over and over again. Our core beliefs are normally handed down to us from our trusty, loving folks who have told us what they think is right for us, in the same way they were told by their parents. Our culture, religion, place of upbringing is by far the biggest influence in our lives. Perhaps you have no religious bent at all, and you're simply living from one moment to another, which makes answering the question, "What do I really believe?" all the more challenging. Society has a habit of encouraging separation, as we should pick our teams, pick a sport, take a side, political, religious, which war, whose territory. This list is endless, and we can feel pressured by others into having a belief system, whether we care to give it much thought or not. Many factors make their way into our belief mixing pot, and without much thought they can become part of our unconscious thought processes. Our core beliefs help define the filters through which we interpret the world around us. Our beliefs and subsequent emotions help define our thoughts, which then give rise to our intentions and behaviours. To have an understanding of what you sincerely believe to be true about yourself and what you're doing from moment to moment can help shape the rest of your life in the most profound way. Change is inevitable, and therefore one's perspective is also subject to change. So perhaps it's time to re-evaluate our perception of the world around us, and more importantly, our lives and our roles within it. Besides, what harm can it do to have a look at what filters we have in place, or put in place for us, that may be blocking out some really interesting stuff? Of course, religion is a biggie. And when I talk about spirituality, I certainly include those with a religious underpinning. At some point in our lives, almost all of us are introduced or influenced by a religion in one way or another, as over 80% of the world's population currently hold a belief in one of the many religions. Perhaps we find a comfort in religion and derive a sense of community and belonging, or maybe we're simply going through the motions of habit passed down through the generations. There are also those indoctrinated followers from various faiths who are fully committed and utterly convinced that they are on the one and only righteous path. They are absolutely dedicated to the cause, and we've all met those that feel compelled to tell everyone else where we're going wrong. Relax, they say, I have all the answers. It may seem a little odd, but they're probably right. Well, that is to say, it is right for them. Nearly 8 billion humans of all colours, shapes and sizes are on this transient journey with you. There really is no right or wrong when it comes to your own personal experience. That's the beauty of free will. Free will to decide your own path is a common truth no one can escape from. However, for those who are intent on finding a higher truth will quite often be given overwhelming signs that they're on the right track. No wonder so many are convinced they found the one and only path. Religious or spiritual faith and devotion can be highly rewarding, and it can provide compelling personal evidence that there is more to life than meets the physical eye. The power of prayer or meditation, especially when magnified by many people who all share the same focus of energy and belief, can produce some extraordinary results. The combined focus of any large groups of people, whether in an 80,000-seater sports stadium or at a music festival, is tangible. The atmosphere is quite literally buzzing with energy of those putting all of their focus into one area. In some cases, such as the evangelical healing practices, which can be farcical at times, but there have also been some miraculous healings that have taken place in front of a great many people. These moments are lost to those who have automatically swept aside all notions of authenticity of the practice, but if you do happen to witness one at first hand, then your belief filters are likely to change. Faith in your belief can be a tremendously powerful platform to leap from in life. Inexplicable and powerful moments are very often all the proof we'll ever need for existence of something more than the simple human beings we thought we were. It's very exciting for those who have experienced an event of sorts, and many become so passionate about their discoveries it becomes addictive. They must share it with the world. Some call it the spiritual chills or goosebumps. Many have been visited. Perhaps they've seen a ghost or had a calling. Some profess to have witnessed miracles or voices spoken clearly in their minds during meditations. It is incredibly personal for the individual concerned, and frustratingly, almost impossible to relate to another with even a fraction of the same emotional impact. Sadly, so many of these signs can be dismissed by the ego for fear of being ridiculed. And let's face it, we're busy people, and it's far easier to ignore the inexplicable in a society prone to herd-like conformity. We wouldn't want to be seen as weird now, would we? It's not entirely our fault. In the past, people were persecuted for daring to think differently. Most human beings have considered the possibility that something may exist on a higher level at some point during their lives. As with any spiritual self-help manual or religious text, the words on the pages are written by other human beings who are passionate about their beliefs. The Bible, for instance, 66 different books written by many disciples and worshipped as an inspiration of how to lead a good, sin-free life. God, in this instance, is primarily a noun, normally depicted as a man in human form, and is generally to be worshipped as a separate entity. All religions are underpinned with spirituality. But the word spiritual itself is a general term that simply describes your personal relationship with this unseen force. Call it what you like. It's an ambiguous term offering plenty of wiggle room to allow for your unique interpretations. It may be influenced by part religion, science, Jedi, whatever. Even science sometimes refers to the fluid intelligence behind matter. As if they themselves recognize there is more to life than meets the eye. This is what Max Planck, who was widely regarded as the father of quantum mechanics, said during his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech in 1918. As a man who has devoted his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you as a result of my research about atoms this much. There is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. Spirituality and New Thought philosophy recognizes God more as a verb, the energy that exists in everything, including our own consciousness. Source energy in this case is what's all around us, flows through us, and more importantly is the essence of life itself. Even the most rigid of ancient scriptures are open to being interpreted in different ways by the religious leaders. And then there are our own filters for it to travel through, ensuring that our unique perceptions remain just that, unique. Everyone has a belief of sorts. It's impossible not to. Even those who don't believe in anything preferring to opt for what they think is the least crazy of the options, that life is one big lucky fluke, and we probably evolved from dust particles in an electric storm. or they have invested into a belief system. Perhaps the puzzle is just a little too tough to solve from a materialistic standpoint, and it's easier just to say anything than nothing. There's no real escape from this elephant in the room question, and you could drive yourself mad overthinking the idea who started the universe and why. Even the cleverest scientist minds of our time, who have improved our lives immeasurably over the years, like to deal with provable facts and prefer to focus mostly on the breakdown of materialism and the rigid laws of nature. The meaning of life in that respect is nothing more than a process which has no real purpose other than to pass on ever-improving genetic material that has an unconscious mechanical quality to it. Consciousness itself can be described as a unique but transient occurrence, and can often be referred to as atoms contemplating atoms. In that respect, we are probably the only life forms in existence backed up by the fact we see no signs of intelligent life elsewhere, or hear no radio signals from space that would indicate as such. That is, of course, based upon the principle that highly evolved interdimensional beings would be using our technology. Simply put, mainstream science says if we cannot see it or prove it, we don't believe it. Until recent times, medicines were only considered effective when created by scientists through manipulation, which is why synthetic manufactured drugs are heavily funded, overpriced and widely distributed. Meanwhile, natural remedies are widely ignored because we like to think we know better. Perhaps with this in mind, there's a slightly ironical twist that science also relies on a theoretical starting point as the moment when all matter violently and inexplicably sprang from nowhere into existence, the Big Bang Theory. But then where and who conjured up the ingredients for such an explosive dish? They tend to think anything paranormal is explainable. There's no such thing as extrasensory perception or clairvoyance, as they can simply be explained away as coincidences or tricks of the mind. Of course, the unexplained will remain unexplained for the moment, as there will be rational scientific answers for all these questions just waiting discovery. Let's not hold our breath. Modern humans have not had the most inspirational start when it comes to exploring the unknown. But minds are starting to open in this modern age of enlightenment, and open minds are receptive. This being said, we'll continue to read the horoscopes in the daily papers. The police will continue to use psychics, well, if it works, it works. And those that are keen will find heaps of pages on extrasensory perception, such as remote viewing, in one simple online search, mostly military, dating back many decades. Development and research companies will still enlist the help of water diviners, and the magic of quantum entanglement will be blowing our minds with their abilities with computers in a not so distant future. From the early 18th century onwards, science was at the forefront of innovation and exploration of the natural world around us. Intrepid explorers trapped just about every living thing they could set their hands on, labelling and pinning each one. We ate it, shot it, captured it, in many cases into extinction. Whilst it opened a new and fascinating world to the masses, nature simply became another thing to conquer, giving us the illusion of understanding and control. Of course, we were kidding ourselves. We conquered very little, apart from each other, and still know very little about nature's true wonders. Being open to new ideas, listening, reading, following your instincts will allow for your personal expansion. Just as long as we keep looking, it'll never end. The word believe in itself would suggest you're open to change because it accommodates the existence of contrasting beliefs. I have mine, you have yours. Faith, on the other hand, implies a complete trust in what you understand already. There are some fascinating religious and spiritual teachers that have some wonderful insights, and perhaps we should make time to listen to as many as we can. Perhaps even bunch them together or cherry pick the parts that feel good to unify and receive an even larger message. Life is full of choice, and so perhaps we should spend a little more time looking at the menu and the specials board, no matter how unusual it may seem at the time. Tolerance, acceptance, and open-mindedness. Remember, you are in control of you. You are actually at the center of the universe, your universe, and that's all that matters. No longer should we accept being controlled from anywhere else. Finding faith creates a balanced inner peace and stability. If though you're just one of those lucky people who simply has an inherent faith without much thought of exploration about the whats and the whys, then that's wonderful. As long as it's a genuine feeling of inner stability and not something brushed under the carpet for later on. Because later on will come sooner than you think. Again, there is no right or wrong way to do this, but most of us who start on this journey of exploration end up wanting more and more. If that's the case for you, then rest assured more is what you'll get. Intention is everything. Ultimately, no one can think our thoughts, feel our feelings, or live our lives for us. Paying attention to our intuition helps us better understand our own desires. It's an independent journey, and it very well may be in sharp contrast to those around you, but it doesn't matter. If you're stimulated and eager, and it feels good, then the world around us will start to make a little bit more sense.